broad cross-sector collaboration and a more holistic way of driving social development initiatives, where the primary actors, in this case the waste picking community, would be deeply involved in the co-creation of the program. We had identified a lack of funding for this type of holistic, complex approaches and set out to explore how this could be done using a method called collective impact. And this is a highly structured way of working in collaboration, where the partners have co-created and designed interventions with the community, looking at the full picture, focusing on what the waste pickers themselves had identified as the key root causes of their intergenerational poverty and marginalization. Partners look at 6 specific outcomes, and these are ensuring that waste picker families have higher and more stable incomes, improved and safer working conditions, the ability to move to alternate professions, access to affordable and quality social services, building support systems for victims of violence and substance abuse, and finally, for people of Bengaluru to recognize and respect the value of waste picking. To achieve this, our implementing partners focus on 8 different intervention areas. Next, please. In this 60-minute panel conversation, I have the pleasure to introduce 3 of the partners of Samvika Shakti. It's Nalini Shekhar, founder of Hasrudala, Nidhi Bansal, Executive Director at CARE India, and Ankur Garg, Country Director at BBC Media Action India. I'm so happy that you could join us today. The conversation will primarily cover the topics of community, power, and mindsets, and why we see this as so important in the ambition to create systems change. So without further ado, let's dive into the questions. And the first one goes to all panelists. Samvika Shakti is a collective impact initiative that has brought together different development organizations to work closely with each other towards the one common vision, focusing on diverse intervention areas. Can you talk about these areas and how your organizations went about co-creating your interventions while ensuring you did so holistically without falling into silos? And why don't we start with you, Nalini? Could you tell our listeners about Hasrudala's intervention areas and how they tie into Samvika Shakti's overall mission?
Yeah, sure. So as Maria said, we work with waste pickers in Bangalore city, and the city is quite large, and solid waste is about almost 5,500 metric tons per day, of which at least 70%, 60% is of organic waste. The rest is inorganic, which can be recycled and non-recycled. So traditionally, when the city was not really filling the gap, the waste pickers have traditionally picked up the recyclable waste on the street and sorted, graded, and sold it to the recycling market. But that is the traditional work. But it was very important that they should be recognized as environmentalists. They should be recognized as people who are contributing economically to the sector itself. So, so we specifically in Samvika Shakti, we look at the social security. In the absence of living wages, with the income they have, it becomes extremely important to get this social security benefit that is offered by the state. And access to that is the main problem. When India went digitized all our access to social security, there's a huge group of waste pickers who don't read and write, and they don't have digital literacy or access to digital application, where there was a gap. And with our intervention, when in the past we used to do the social security with the the CI in innovation, we started doing something called mobile security, social security. That means you go with a laptop and printer and whatever you need to the community. Because if the waste picker come to a designated place in the office to spend time in collection of documentation, and sometimes they didn't even have the basic identity cards, right? So they will lose at least 2 days of work. So it was very important for us to go to their doorstep and actually provide the social security. That's the flagship is housing. Housing is a very together public house. So we started working on the housing because that gives the most security for the waste picker, being on the pavement or in the slum, in a hut. Tenancy is very limited for them. Not many people are willing to give them on rent. So public housing is the main thing. And that's how the system has to change, recognize and provide them housing. So those two are very important part. Of course, we also work on issues of domestic violence. We work with the children who need play therapy. So it is a collective impact, and the other partners will talk about other parts they're doing. And this is to start with, this is what I would like to share what we are doing in the CI initiative.
Thank you, Nalini. Could you also describe a little bit about how it ties into the overall, for our audience to understand the more broader picture?
Yeah. So when you take up a community to work with, there are a lot of other issues. Sanitation issues are there. If people want to increase their income, if their children need a special educational support, academic support. So we really need to look at a community in a 360 degrees, and not necessarily one organization has all the skills. They might have certain skills at certain level, but not everybody has every skill. So in this particular CI, what has happened is our partners who are good at, for example, WaterAid, which is very good at water and sanitation is part of this, who will address that part of the community. There is CARE, who they will be talking soon. They have formed a collective to look at increased income or alternate income, alternate job if they choose to, the waste picker choose to. And there's BBC Media, which is coming and talking about the better perspective or better recognition for the work that waste picker do, and understand to the public, to the general public, that their contribution is very good. So this kind of a 360 degree services that we would like to do for waste pickers is not available in, skills are not available in one organization. When all of us join together, definitely that there looks like it's going to give a stronger foundation so that they have a better living conditions and working conditions.
Yeah, thank you so much. I agree that. And what about CARE India, Nidhi, if you would like to share?
Sure, thank you so much, Maria. And thanks, Nalini, for setting up the context so nicely about the community that we are working with. And it's such a pleasure to be talking about this very important approach that H&M Foundation has been enabling all the partners to come together and implement on the ground, which is the collective impact. And as Nalini very rightly said, what makes this special is that we are putting the community at the center and their needs. People's lives are not compartmentalized. While organizations may have specific experience and specialization, people live a life which is, they need services and inputs all across their life. And this is one initiative which has enabled all the organizations with their specific skill sets to come together and serve a community holistically. CARE's role in this collective initiative is to provide alternate incomes, alternate income opportunities for specifically women and young people. And here, the idea is that while waste picking itself is their primary livelihoods. There may be community members who may want to augment their income, who may want to have options for increasing their income, or they may want to have alternate choices. And CARE's role in this collective is focused on enabling women and young people to enhance their skills, enhance their choices, as well as build an ecosystem where they are able to operate with dignity and take up other income earning opportunities. The way we have been also contributing to this whole collective work is that as we work with the community members very closely in identifying the skill sets and their aspirations and their opportunities, we also come across members of the community who need services, who need different services. And as Nalini was saying, social security is one of the very important service that community members need. And when we come across participants who need such services, we are able to then very quickly connect them with other organizations. We have another partner of the collective, LaborNet, that is providing placement services, and CARE and LaborNet work very, very closely. Once CARE works on building the skill sets of individuals, either in terms of life skills or digital literacy, financial literacy, business skills, LaborNet, our partner, helps us in placement of people and in connecting them with employers for placement. So this is another way in which complementary skill sets work for the benefit of the community. And then BBC Media Action's role cannot be, I can never highlight it more, because one of the key elements is for waste pickers to be able to work in the ecosystem well is enhance their dignity and respect amongst everyone. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from Ankur, how they have managed to crack this very, very difficult part of the puzzle, which is not always visible in terms of so much income increased, but which forms the foundation for all of the partners to work well with. So looking forward to hearing from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Nidhi. Yeah. I agree. Ankur, we're all keen to hear more about how did BBC Media Action go about building your intervention areas and co-creating together with the others.
Great. Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you, Nidhi and Nalini, for setting it up so nicely for me to come in and say what I have to say. But, at the beginning of the process, we go back a few years back when this entire initiative was being conceptualized, and so big thank you to H&M Foundation to think about the lives of waste pickers and think about them in a way that goes in multi-sectoral, that imbibes a multi-sectoral approach and looks at these various different facets of the life of a waste picker, and therefore bringing together a collective of organizations who are working across these facets. So thank you. Our role as BBC Media Action within the collective is to look at the pillar of respect and recognition, which means that the people of Bengaluru recognize and respect the value of waste picking, the trade, as well as the people who are behind that trade. We have experience and we've shown evidence of doing that work and looking at these challenges across multiple teams that we've worked with as an organization in the past. So when we really started to actually address this challenge under Samuhika Shakti, we said that it was really necessary for us to look at social exclusion and justice and understand that in a conceptual way. So we started with Professor Judith Butler, who's one of the sort of influential gender theorists of our time, to understand the issues of inequity, identity, and social inclusion to begin with. We then developed a framework from that. And then we set out to explore those themes as it applied to the waste pickers themselves, as well as to general population in Bangalore. So where we started was, so we did rather than deciding for people, what the problems and what the barriers were, we went to speak to the people directly. So we conducted a range of formative research, both with people in Bangalore, so general population in Bangalore, as well as with informal waste pickers themselves. And one of the key things that we came up with was to say that within the trade of waste picking, the waste picker, that is the human behind the process, was invisible to most people. So people saw the outcome of what they did, but people didn't see the human behind that outcome. And that's what we set out to change. So just some very clear sort of examples of how that manifests was that 55% of the sample audiences that we talked to within general population thought that waste pickers were dirty, and that 56% believed that they shouldn't be allowed near buildings, condominiums, let alone inside them. Now that stigma and discrimination starts from years of conditioning, right? It's not specific to this program, but it manifests in how, as a result of that, waste pickers themselves tend to become invisible as a way to escape that discrimination. So if there is widespread stigma against me and discrimination against me, I as a person say that, I don't want to be visible. I don't want to come in the forefront. I want to be in the back end so that I'm not faced with that discrimination. And that had become the status quo, while both the perpetrator of that invisibility, as well as the people who were facing that invisibility, thought that was the comfortable position. And what we did was to come and challenge that as an organization. We did an insight mining process that was based on our formative research, and we came up with the key insight of interconnectedness, which then shaped a lot of our content, which shaped a lot of our thinking, where we said that healthy lives and happy lives of people of general population of Bangalore was dependent on a livable life for an informal waste picker, and that these two things were inextricably linked, and we couldn't do one without the other. And in order for the waste pickers to have the social acceptance that they need, there was reason and there was sort of requirement for us to work at two levels. First was at the level of general population, which was looking at the role that the waste pickers play in the society and in support of the environment and health. As well as there was a need to shift how waste pickers thought about their work themselves, see themselves as an important part of the process, recognize that and what they're bringing to the society and the environment. And therefore, these two became as our key thematic focus areas through the intervention.
Thank you. I think, this context setting really helps our audience understand the holistic aspect of our program. And as you've mentioned, the community was involved in identifying the 8 intervention areas. And so to the audience, now you've heard about some of them: the access to social security, workplace safety and health, support systems for victims of substance abuse, skilling, and the ability to move to alternate professions if so desired, as well as perception change. And on top of that, our other partners in the collective cover access to quality education, safe water and sanitation, and development of new waste recycling streams and increased income opportunities through that. And unfortunately, for time reasons, we don't have time to cover all the intervention areas today, but towards the end of the session, we'll post a slide with contact details if you want to know more about the bigger picture. But for now, let's dive a little bit more into details. I would like to ask you, Nalini, Hasrudala, which has been working with the community for over a decade, was instrumental in helping Samvika Shakti's partners connect with. Have we lost Nalini? I know she's got a little bit of a bad network. Yeah, okay. I think we'll jump to you, Nidhi, instead, because we wanted to also talk about the one of the aspects of the program is to shift power, right? And enable waste pickers to gain agency over their lives and livelihoods. So Nidhi, if you could talk about Care India works specifically with women from the waste picking community to train them, as you described, different types of necessary skills so they can, for example, start small businesses. Why would you say this is so important? How did Care India go about doing this, and how far has this come now in the past 3 years?
Right. So, so Care India has a philosophy that we employ if we are working on any of our projects, and this is an empowerment philosophy. And the three tenets of that philosophy include building agency, enabling institutions to work for the community, and then also building relationships, strengthening the relationships. So for any of the interventions we undertake, whether it's in the economic or social domain, one of the key elements is building the agency of the community members that we are working with. And that also forms the foundation of all our work within Samuhika Shakti also. Now, Care India has a very structured way of going about building agency, and we have modules that are focusing on training modules. We call them training modules, but essentially those are discussion modules where we engage the members on issues like self-image, on communication, negotiation, on life skills like working in stress situations, or even some essential skills like financial literacy or digital literacy, which are essential to give them the confidence to operate in an environment where they need to operate. All of this enables the women or young people who we engage with. It enables them to feel confident about operating in that environment, about engaging with ecosystem actors. Because one of the barriers that women particularly face is that they do not have the exposure, and they do not have they have not had the exposure to be talking to external people in the external world, and they need the self-confidence. And these sessions enable them, that these sessions give them the confidence that they can go and talk to a vendor, talk to the financial institution, personnel in the financial institution. And a lot of hand-holding support goes alongside the sessions for them to find that confidence and communication and negotiation. What we found very interestingly, that as we were implementing these sessions, and COVID struck at that time itself, and one of the sessions that came very handy or two things that came very handy for the participants was the newfound digital skills, because a lot of them had to depend on these digital skills for connecting with each other, connecting with us, as well as connecting with the market. And stress management was another area that came in very helpful for many of the participants. So besides building agency, our sessions are also then focusing on building vocational skills if they desire to enter into a particular vocation. Now, CARE does not do that. And here the collective comes into play, where LaborNet is the one that would provide those vocational skills. And then we provide entrepreneurship development program for the people who want to get into a nano enterprise. We also help them collectivize so that they have that kind of peer support mechanism available to them. They have that kind of savings available to them that will enable them to access credit and access financial services collectively. We are very, very happy that in an urban setting, listening to the needs of the women themselves, we were able to create area-level federation of these self-help groups. And now these area-level federations are able to access financial support through the financial institutions, as well as the National Urban Livelihood Mission. Now, these self-help groups collectively have a saving of over $1 million, and I'm talking in Indian rupees here, over 10 million of saving collectively amongst themselves, which is a huge amount for a community like Waste Picking who earn almost a daily wage. And this gives them the confidence. This gives them the confidence to go out and start a nano enterprise, to talk to financial institutions. Till date, we have been able to train over 4,000 people, take 4,000 people through these life skills and entrepreneurship development sessions. We have enabled 135 individuals to set up nano enterprises. Another 6 collective enterprises have been successfully running for past 2 years. And then we are also working with over 135 collectives of either SHGs or dry waste collection centers. So we are very happy that we are moving steadily towards enabling a large population to enter into alternate income generating activities.
Yeah, thank you. And that point of actually building the self-confidence, I think, is so central. Could you just very briefly also talk about what were some of the challenges that you faced while working on these last 3 years? Some of the learnings on the gender front that perhaps can serve as a valuable lesson for others looking into this, working similarly.
So challenges, I think I forgot to mention that right at the beginning of the process, Care India also undertook a gender study, gender study and a market study. So we were already aware of some of the challenges that this particular community was facing. For example, migration is one of the key patterns, and this migration is controlled by men. Generally, women do not have a say in when and where the family would migrate to. And this, the migration patterns could be quite disruptive when we are talking about setting up income generation activities for women. This has been one of the challenges. Now, what we feel we have been able to do is to provide women those foundational skills, a skill set that will enable them to start up a business and take their nano businesses anywhere that the family decides to move. Another key challenge has been, and which is a linked challenge, is the decision-making ability of women. And these decisions include decisions for mobility, relating to mobility, decision to participate in these collectives. So these were some of the things that we encountered right in the beginning. And we were very clear that we had to take the whole community with us, and therefore male engagement is one of the corner pieces of our strategy, so that we engage the men in the family. We take them along. They understand what the whole initiative is all about, and at the same time building women's own agency also to take their decisions. So while as we enter the community, we do not have the wherewithal for women to be making their own decisions, but what we would like to do is, by the time we leave the community, the women feel confident in taking their own decisions about their economic affairs, taking decisions about their children's education, about their sanitation and other needs. So that was again another challenge. The one challenge which was very, very difficult was the time poverty that this particular community faces. So when we were thinking of designing the program, we thought of a 7-day training session for each of the members. But when we started working and we listened to the women themselves, we found that it was a very big challenge for them to take out 7 days. It was a huge opportunity cost for them. And we had to rework our design for the sessions and break those down into smaller two-day sessions or half-day sessions in some cases, as well as complement that with IEC material, with digital material. This happened as a result of us listening to the needs of to the realities and needs of the women that we were working with. Another big change that we had to make was to create these area level federations, which enable them to connect to the National Urban Livelihood Mission, which provides certain entitlements to these communities and these groups. Now, this not only helped us change our design, but it gave us a sense that we were addressing and we were listening to the people and were able to shift our design also in relation to the people that we were working with.
Thank you. Yeah, this really shows why the gender lens is so necessary to enable equity for the entire community. And another important part of systems change approaches is working on the implicit levels, such as underlying perceptions and mindsets. So we'll go to you, Ankur. Could you, I mean, BBC Media Action's role is all about shifting mindsets. If you could talk a bit about why a perception change is so important and how it contributes towards empowering the community.
Sure. Thank you very much. So I think perception change is central to creating a shift in how somebody feels about themselves or what they do. In this instance, when we, through the multiple rounds of us speaking to waste pickers as recent as just last week, where we were doing our immersion visits again with waste pickers to challenge our perceptions, to challenge some of the assumptions that we've made and to adapt our programming as we go along. They understand their trade, right? They have the knowledge of their trade. What's missing is a feeling of being respected. What's missing is a feeling of pride. And that's what some of the people said back to us, that that's what they desire, right? And that shift from knowledge to emotion, almost that alchemy, is what communication can bring. And that's why perceptions and working on perceptions and continuing to work on perceptions is important. It's not a sort of a street where you go and you say that, fine, this is done and I'm sorted and I can move on, but it's a continuous process. And that's the approach that we adopted, even working with the general population on shaping overall perceptions in the city of Bengaluru. What we've done is that we've divided our communication into 4 phases. And we've done a sort of, through each of those phases, we are deepening the engagement and we are helping people develop greater understanding and empathy for waste picker families and that the role that they play in everybody's lives. And so, for example, in the first phase of so we've primarily used digital and social media as a tool to reach people across Bengaluru. And we've used a combination of working with big social media influencers in a very collaborative way, co-creating content, etc. We've used media publications as well as advertising as an approach to reach our target audience. And we've done this incrementally. So our first phase of the social media campaign was to reveal to the audience who informal waste pickers were and who they are and how crucial they are for the city. So it was opening of a conversation for somebody who's been under the shroud for a long time, right? And it's that revelation was what we focused on phase 1. Our impact monitoring research showed positive movement and awareness about informal waste pickers after that phase. And then we said that, fine, now that people know who informal waste pickers are broadly, we focused on bringing spotlight to the work that they do and celebrating their contribution to waste recycling and diverting tons of waste from landfills away. I'll share some examples of how we've done that, but including looking at popular culture and including looking at how we can look at entertainment media and include that within our information to be able to reach people where they are rather than where we want people to be, rather than being preachy about a topic and creating a story which attracts the choir. How do we expand our audience base and how do we appeal to the masses and create still the shifts that we want to see through the intervention. So that's what we've done. We've seen that shift happening with the phase 2 at scale. Going further, we are looking to build a bridge in the next 2 phases of our work. We are looking to build a bridge between the invaluable recyclers who we shaped as a community, and we said that we are going to move people from being invisible to being invaluable. And that's been sort of one of the key driving forces behind our thinking and behind our approach on this project. And what we want to do going further is to create that bridge between the invaluable recycler as well as the general population. So we are looking at various different kind of communication formats to be able to achieve that, not just limited to digital and social media, but also looking at how we activate our communication properties and how we create a conversation around those properties in the real life, both with general population as well as with the informal waste pickers. So what parts of the communication landscape do we need to touch with general population? What do we need to emphasize on? What do we need to get a discussion going on? And what probably some different parts of that landscape, but probably using the same output with the informal waste pickers. So we are looking at doing and integrating our products and approaches. We are looking at activating those on the ground using a combination of social media and on-ground interventions as we go along in the further phases of this program, leading to a point where at least at the end of the first phase of this intervention, we are getting a conversation started between the 2 segments, because there has been no recognition to now looking at each other, to coming closer, to being willing to start a conversation, and then looking at how we can jump off that cliffhanger into hopefully the next phase of implementation over the course of next few years, looking at therefore what those conversations could meaningfully look like. So that's been the pathway. It's not been easy, but it's been extremely exciting for us. And we're looking forward to doing this more.
Super interesting. What has been the sort of reception from the general public on your campaign so far? What's the impact you see?
So we've done 2 intense phases, as we've just discussed, of the communication so far. We've already reached over 5.1 million people through Meta. That is 36% of Bengaluru's city population. So we are talking scale. And the response from the audience has been quite positive and encouraging. So we've had different objectives to different parts of our communication outlay. So in the first phase of the program, we did a social experiment film where we wanted to take our audiences on a journey from waste picking, from seeing waste picking as dirty, to recognizing the humans behind waste picking and recognize them as important skilled workers that contributed to society and to environment, to see them as a friend. And that there weren't earlier conversations happening about waste pickers, and we did a hashtag of invaluables to get people to start those conversations and for us to track that. So we saw shifts there. And then in the second phase, as I said, that we looked at leveraging what works in the country and meeting people where they are. So in a country where movies, festivals, rituals, and everything else revolves around music, we picked a song in the second phase to reach across social strata, and as I said, meet people where they are and languages. We found a good number that needed celebrating, and that number was 38325 not. We coined that as happy number. We branded it as that, and then we did a music video involving some of the most influential social media celebrities and influencers that exist out there. It was co-created, and then it was promoted through multiple handles. So as I said, this song introduces the Bengaluru's happy number, which is the amount of waste that informal waste pickers in Bengaluru divert away from landfills. And we all know how big landfills are a problem in our sort of waste management story. And people see them as events when there is a fire on the landfill, or when there is a huge stench, but they don't look at the story behind it, and they don't look at what would have happened had the informal waste pickers not been a crucial part of the waste management cycle. So through our work, what we've seen is that there's been a substantive increase in awareness of informal street waste collectors, from 22% to 54% within the audiences that have been exposed to our work. Again, those exposed to our work are 20% more likely to discuss the importance of waste pickers with their family. And that we believe, just having worked on social and behavior change communication for a long time, that we understand is an important precursor to practice change. That's how people internalize a topic, and that's how people want to get social recognition for a topic before they go ahead and have the intent to practice it. So that's a pretty critical indicator for us. And what we've seen is that 17% of people who've been exposed to our program have a higher likelihood of rebranding and reframing the work identity of an informal waste picker to an environmentalist or to an invaluable recycler, as opposed to the unexposed. So we've seen significant step change forward in very deeply rooted, long-standing, sometimes intergenerational negative perceptions about informal waste pickers, and in establishing a sensitized community. We hope to carry that forward and see much more nuanced shifts as we go along.
Thank you. Amazing numbers. 36% of the population. That's pretty amazing. I heard that Nalini has not been able to join back. She has problems with her network. So I think Zipi, could you fill in very briefly here? She would really like to talk about how you've been able to connect and involve the community. Give some examples of that, please.
Surely, yeah. So, and here I can also talk a little bit about how we've been working very closely with Hasiru Dala, Nalini's organization, because Hasiru Dala is the organization that has been there with a very long-standing presence with this community. And right from the beginning, they have been our friends in introducing us to the community, in making us comfortable, and also, you know, for us to have our frontline workers who are our faces in the community. One of the ways that we connect with this with the community is through the collectivization process. And in the collectivization process, we work with the community members to create these self-help groups or district dry waste collection centers, where people will come together. They will have a common objective of meeting together, either for savings or for internal lending, or even for this setting up an enterprise. And these collectives where women have been coming together have become vehicles for not only delivering some of the sessions formally and in a structured manner, but have also become the informal spaces where women are able to share a lot of their challenges, provide that support to each other, provide the strength to each other, and also gain strength from seeing their women like themselves taking on nano enterprises. One of the very interesting stories is of this of a woman who felt very timid and did not want to come to the meetings at all, and was brought into the meetings by one of the friends who had already attended some of the life skills sessions. Now, her husband was not very keen that she attends this meeting. Somehow her friend was able to convince her husband to send Padma to the meeting. And Padma then, once she went through the sessions, was able to work with our frontline worker to identify her skill set in creating these dosa batters, the batter for a very popular breakfast in Bengaluru, the dosa batter, and she wanted to set up an enterprise to sell the dosa batter in her community. Today, Padma's story is one of the success stories, because not only she started with that selling the batter, but she also expanded into creating idlis and setting up a stall in the morning, also going outside of her community and inspiring other women to do similar kind of enterprises. There are numerous such stories that I can recount all day.
Yeah.
But another very important part is the collective enterprises that women have been able to set up. So not only individual level nano enterprises that women have set up, but also the collective enterprises, which not only requires an individual's commitment to the enterprise, but also the collective to come together to be able to produce something and then take it to the market and have the confidence to set up a stall in a corporate or in a fair. And these are the stories that are coming out of this whole initiative that make us very, very confident and hopeful that we are contributing to making the lives of community members better.
Yeah, thank you. It's so nice to hear those stories as well about the women that are included. I know Nalini was going to talk a little bit about the concept of Nama Jagali. Could you briefly cover that, or should we bring in Zibi so if you're comfortable, Nidhi?
No, Zibi can probably talk a little bit more and for audience's interest. Yeah.
Thanks. So Zibi, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm sorry that Nalini cannot join. I think she's having internet issues, but she called me up and asked me to share this with the audience because she thought that it was important to share this, and especially so as the topic that we're discussing is about shifting the power. Usually the people that we are working with, they don't sometimes, or like historically, they've not had much opportunity to contribute their opinions of what is the work that they want to do. But in Samuhika Shakti, what we have been very, very careful and very, something that everybody, all the organizations that are part of have been very careful about is also about the waste pickers having agency to talk about what is it that they want to do. And Nalini and Nama Jagali is a monthly meeting that is conducted within the waste picker community. What Hasrudala, introduced it to all the partners and made it happen. What happens is that, like during COVID, and essentially saw that post-pandemic, there were lots of new issues that kind of cropped up, which were not evident before. And then all of these issues and challenges that the waste pickers were facing needed to come up, and everybody needed to know that. So Nama Jagali, the monthly meeting, provided that avenue. Hasrudala conducts these meetings in the waste picker community itself, and all partners participate, and they list out the issues that they face. Women and men come together, whether it is the access to water or challenges with regard to education or identity that they are facing. And the partners get to hear from the waste pickers directly, and if there are any tweaks that need to be made, if there are any program design, or maybe there are some initiatives that they can help with. It's also important to know that not all the challenges that the waste pickers will be bringing up might be possible, but wherever it's possible for the partners to intercede and help them, the Majagali makes it happen. So Nalini was, she would definitely wanted to share that with the audience here.
Thank you, Zibi. Thanks for jumping in and so expertly representing Nalini. Zibi represents the Nudge Institute, which is the backbone of Samuhika Shakti, the backbone organization. Thank you, Nalini, Nidhi, Ankur, and Zibi. It's been such a rich conversation and very interesting to hear your reflections and learnings from Samuhika Shakti. So to round off, we've talked about three key central aspects that we see are needed for equitable systems change. So it's firstly community, involving waste pickers in the change process, both in the co-creation phase and also throughout implementation. And an example of that is this meeting space, Namajagali, you just heard about. Secondly, power. Shifting power relations is key, among other things, for women, as they are a sub-marginalized group. And one way to do that is through collectivizing, to empower women to run businesses, manage waste centers, and to have, well, basically have agency to decide over their own lives. And finally, mindsets. For systems change to happen, mindsets need to shift. It's about who is valued, whose voices count, who is invisible, and whose voices are finally heard. And in our case, it's about changing narratives among the citizens of Bengaluru about the role and identity of waste pickers, highlighting the service they provide and the value this brings to the city, and also working with the waste pickers in bringing their own confidence up. So it's really, in short, transitioning from invisible to invaluable. We are so happy to the audience that you could join us today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to know more about Samvega Shakti or the other partners, you can visit our website. I hope we can put up that final slide. Our website is samvegashakti.org. It's a bit of a difficult one to spell, so if you could get up this slide would be wonderful. And you can find it in the chat otherwise. But on the website, you can also find our contact information for any questions you may have. So do get in touch. And yeah, finally, thank you again to our eminent panel, Nalini, Nidhi, and Ankur at ZB. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and learnings and for making this such a rich conversation. And with that, it's a wrap. Have a really great day, everyone. Bye, and thank you again.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.